before Donald Trump, it wasn't even on the agenda that Greenland might be in play. Donald Trump has said he's got to have it. And now, apparently, he has secured top-level negotiations involving NATO on this. So, he's still winning.
There's Adam Boulton, as the music indicates. Michael Boulton for Adam Boulton, and his big political brain has walked into the studio upon some breaking news, which we'll discuss. Adam, good evening to you.
Good evening, Kate.
Of course, Donald Trump at NATO, Donald Trump at Davos, slip of the tongue there, the big discussion point of the day. But some breaking news will enliven our debate a little bit further, because there is to be a reprieve on those tariffs due to be implemented by the US on the UK, Denmark and other European countries who Donald Trump felt had impeded him in his quest to acquire Greenland. So the tariffs, 10%, will not go into effect on February the 1st, says Donald Trump, because after sitting down with the NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte today at Davos, they have formed the framework of a future deal, he says, with respect to Greenland and the entire Arctic region. Just some on-the-button analysis from you on this, Adam. The immediate threat of tariffs is over. What we don't know, of course, is what this framework looks like.
No, we don't. And we've got the dynamic trio of J.D. Vance, Marco Rubio and Steve Witkoff apparently are going to proceed with these negotiations. Now, this follows a meeting, as you were saying, with Mark Rutte, the Secretary General of NATO. So we don't know where Denmark stands in this, for example. And it's important to note that Donald Trump does say if this comes about, it will be a very good deal. So there's clearly a lot of work to be done. But, this builds on his lengthy and slightly under par and bumbling speech today to Davos, the World Economic Forum, where the good news was, one, he said he wasn't going to use force, although he also said if he did, America would be bound to win. And secondly, he talked about tariffs, the benefits of tariffs, but he didn't mention the tariffs in connection to Greenland.
No, it was a separate one on Switzerland,
wasn't it? This appears to confirm that talks are underway. Although, we do have to understand where we are, that before Donald Trump, it wasn't even on the agenda that Greenland might be in play. Donald Trump has said he's got to have it. And now, apparently, he has secured top-level negotiations involving NATO on this. So, he's still winning. And we've got Keir Starmer today at question time. He didn't go to the World Economic Forum, saying he will not...
He didn't even watch Trump's speech, according to our political editor, Anna Mihailova.
He will not yield on the sovereignty of Greenland and Denmark.
So have those words... I mean, I did start the show saying, look, an increase in combative language from Emmanuel Macron yesterday, Ursula von der Leyen, Keir Starmer being his most outspoken, he offered the most condemnation towards Donald Trump today by saying he would not yield at Prime Minister's questions to the demands of the US president over Greenland. Have they had an effect? Is this Mark Rutte, the NATO Secretary General, who's always been very complimentary of Donald Trump? Donald Trump mentioned him in his speech, the one who calls me daddy, he says. Has he made the difference? What on earth could have got us to this point?
Well, remember that Keir Starmer believes that in his conversations with Donald Trump, he did manage to persuade him that the deployment of extra troops by European nations to Greenland was not directly aimed at America. So perhaps they've all played a part in talking down Donald Trump. But I have to say, I still feel that, the claim of Donald Trump on another NATO territory is still there. And so in that sense, the Prime Minister of Canada, Mr. Carney, was absolutely right when he said, look, this is a rupture and an end of the old rules-based system. Donald Trump is still breaking the rules, or at least remaking negotiations in his own pattern.
Donald Trump saying here that it will be a great solution for the US and all NATO countries. We discussed with a Greenlandic MP earlier the idea of the US having military autonomy over Greenland. So a deal in which they had full control over what Greenland or rather how Greenland operates on a military level, and presumably NATO would be involved with funding for that.
Well, presumably, but they kind of already do have military autonomy. I mean, there was a slight a hiccup put into it in terms of having to ask permission, I think, from Denmark for some things. But in principle, they do already have military autonomy. And of course, anything short of stamping the stars and stripes on this piece of ice, as Donald Trump described it repeatedly in his...
A big piece of ice.
Big piece of ice
hardly any
in his
people on
speech
it.
today. It is short, clearly, of his ambitions and short of his ambition to physically make America greater again.
Tom has messaged in and with just 4 letters. Can you imagine what those 4 letters might be with respect to Donald Trump?
TACO.
Taco, absolutely correct, Adam Boulton. I told you I had a big brain.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm not...
Trump always chickens out.
Yeah,
I mean,
but I'm not sure he is chickening out. I mean,
we don't know, do we, until we see the contents?
He's getting his demands by other routes, by peacefully, by saying, I'm not going to bash you because if I did, you'd be crushed. So give me what I want.
I still return back to this fact that this needs to be economically advantageous for Donald Trump to fit with his America First policy. That's how he sells all of this work on the international stage, all of this, ending wars, etc. Yes, it makes him look like a great statesman, but at the end of the day, there has to be an economic benefit for the United States. I firmly believe that is rooted in many of his decisions. And so what might that economic benefit be? Might there be a deal with NATO if the US assumes responsibility of everything on a military defensive level? Will they, in exchange, get a share or get a part of some of the rich resources that Greenland has to offer?
Well, yes, they will. But they could have done anyway. I mean, people would have been very willing to trade with America in any case. And what we're talking here about...
But maybe he doesn't have to pay anything for those now if he's offering his defensive
Will he
clout.
make money out of this? I mean, the talk has been of him paying if they talked about $800 billion if he bought
to buy the whole thing.
Greenland. I mean, I think there's a bit of a point to this, is that we are moving, as Mark Carney said yesterday, back or into a completely different era. That the standard post the Second World War through the United Nations was that basically borders were respected and alliances were formed to defend borders, and when a country invaded or tried to take territory from another, it was condemned, as indeed Russia has been condemned for trying to take territory from Yugoslavia. What is happening now is Trump is saying, no, we're back to the period of the Louisiana Purchase, or when America took over Hawaii, or when America bought Alaska. off the Americans. So, if this happens, then lots of things come into play, because no one can any longer say borders are safe. And for example, there's a suggestion that if America were to establish itself in Greenland, then Russia might say, well, what about Svalbard? Which is islands that belong to Norway in the Arctic Circle, but which already has a Russian community on. So then you get back to what we had prior to and in the Second World War, of countries trying to nick each other's
China
territory.
and Taiwan being another example of that. Look, nothing in this Truth Social post from Donald Trump, by the way, which he says a framework has been agreed, a future deal with respect to Greenland and the entire Arctic region. That's after a sit down with the NATO chief, Mark Rutte. So Donald Trump here saying the immediate threat of tariffs from February the 1st, now scotched, and a framework for a deal has been agreed. At no point does he say, actually, the word ownership or sovereignty.
Or acquire. No, he doesn't.
Acquire.
But do remember, this is the big men, the strong men, the head of NATO and the US president deciding the future or what they're going to do with a piece of territory without any reference, as far as we can tell, either to Denmark, the sovereign territory of Greenland, let alone the Greenlanders.
How does this make Nigel Farage look? He spoke at Davos today. This is what he had to say.
I have no doubt that the world would be a better, more secure place if a strong America was in Greenland because of the geopolitics of the high north, because of the retreating ice caps, and because of the continued expansionism of Russian icebreakers, of Chinese investment. So yes, would America owning Greenland be better for the world in terms of safety and stronger for NATO? It would.
But he then goes on to say that he believes in respecting borders. Nigel Farage, he said that at a side meeting at Davos, incidentally in America House.
Well, he got a really good stage today,
with the Americans hosting it, even though he had his Union Jack socks on. But I mean, I suppose Farage can say, I told you so. If the deal is that the sovereignty of Greenland doesn't change, but America controls it, he will say, well, that's exactly what I was saying when I was in Davos.
Okay. Dave says, I always enjoy your chats with Adam. Thank you, Dave. With regard to Trump, maybe Shakespeare identified taco in rather more words. It's an old tale told by an idiot and signifying nothing. I think that's from Macbeth, there or thereabouts.
Yeah, it is Macbeth. But I mean, it's not nothing. This is geopolitics read in tooth and claw. Mercifully, it looks like short of shots being fired and people being killed. But
did our own Prime Minister have a hand in this? Let's hear from Keir Starmer at Prime Minister's Questions.
As we engage constructively, I have made my position clear on our principles and values. The first of those is that the future of Greenland is for the people of Greenland and the Kingdom of Denmark alone. The second is that threats of tariffs to pressurise allies are completely wrong. Mr. Speaker, we will continue to engage constructively. I've had many international calls in recent days, and the Prime Minister of Denmark is coming to the United Kingdom tomorrow for bilateral talks. But I do want to be clear with the House. I will not yield, Britain will not yield on our principles and values about the future of Greenland under threats of tariffs.
Yeah.
Well, 1-1 lost one, I think would probably be my answer to that yes, the tariffs have been removed and maybe there's a tacit acceptance from Donald Trump that that was a step too far. But as far as the Greenlanders determining their own future, it doesn't look like that is high in the minds of either Mark Rutte or Donald Trump. I mean, the thing about the question time today where Kevin Badenoch, the Conservative leader, tried to link this to the question of Chagos, where she supported Donald Trump, saying that it was a bad deal, but then she supported Keir Starmer on wanting to defend Greenland, is that Keir Starmer wanted to say, look, that's inconsistent. Either you believe in international law and doing things by negotiation, or you don't. But he didn't quite say it clearly enough, really.
He also,
but presumably because he didn't really want to spell out what Donald Trump was doing.
I mean, he also linked Chagos directly to Greenland as well, where he said what Donald Trump said about Chagos is completely different to what...
he says he's just raised Chagos for leverage, but the underlying point was whether under international law you negotiate on disputed territory or whether you just say, let's have it, which is, of course, it has been Trump's position.